Nintendo will probably always be seen as the face of the video game industry in the eyes of the general public, but for a while, their top-of-the-line status was very much in jeopardy. From the NES all the way to the Gamecube, each of their home consoles were seeing worsening sales numbers from its predecessor. It was a multi-decade-long trend in which large percentages of their install base were leaving with every new generation. By all possible metrics, it was the trajectory of a dying home console brand. With new competitors like PlayStation and Xbox growing at a rapid pace right around the same time, Nintendo was in serious danger of losing it all. But as it turns out, they had quite the revolution up their sleeves. The GameCube era was a bit of an eye-opening one for Nintendo. It was a time in which they went out of their comfort zone and tried to adapt to the landscape around them. They signed partnerships with big tech companies like IBM to produce a powerful console that could stand right alongside its competitors. They spent money on third-party deals to acquire high-value exclusive titles. And they responded to the evolving gaming market by publishing an M-rated video game for the first time in their history. It seemed like the exact kind of moves they should be making, following the trends and requests of what gamers wanted. But the GameCube ended up becoming Nintendo's worst-selling home console ever at that time. Despite being the cheapest console available, often being sold for a measly $50, it was demolished by Sony's PlayStation 2. And perhaps even more concerning was Microsoft's brand new Xbox surpassing it as well. I imagine this was a time of extreme panic for Nintendo. The GameCube would be their fourth straight home console generation that would see a decline in sales. In many ways, it felt as though the industry had passed them by. A crazy statement to make about the brand that had once saved the North American video game console market, but it was true. And their attempts to play catch-up had been totally unsuccessful, which no doubt left them with the question of why. Well, I think a lot of it came down to something that they simply could not control, and that something was time. Those who had grown up with Nintendo's consoles had become adults, and either weren't playing video games anymore, or if they were, now wanted more mature experiences like Grand Theft Auto or Halo. Those titles were seen as the new cool thing to play, not those kiddie Nintendo games. Nintendo tried catering to the audience that was leaving them with third-party exclusives like Resident Evil 4 or Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, but they just could not shake the stigma that they were only for kids. I guess the lunchbox handle on their console probably didn't help. But jokes aside, this was a serious problem. Nintendo was losing control of their player base, and attempts to bring them back were falling flat. It had become abundantly clear that trying to sell to the current market of gamers was not going to work. But just when all hope seemed lost, something clicked. Maybe breaking the childish casual gamer stigma wasn't the answer. Instead of trying to fit into a box and become something you're not, the solution all along may have been to lean in even further and cater to an entirely new audience. In May 2002, amidst the GameCube's first full year on the market, a man by the name of Satoru Iwata became the fourth president of Nintendo. With him came a whole new ideology about what the gaming giant was going to be. Iwata knew Nintendo had fallen behind the industry in a few key ways, and while many saw this as a negative trait that needed to be solved as soon as possible, Iwata had a different view on things. He was concerned about the increasing complexity of new video games and what that would mean for developers going forward. He did not agree that a game being more realistic or visually advanced automatically meant it was better. And he wondered about the upcoming saturation the market would face if every single company was chasing these same goals. This mindset would become especially apparent when it was time for the GameCube's successor to begin development. Iwata's vision for this new machine was not one of processing power or visual fidelity, but one of innovation and accessibility. He wanted to create a console that could be understood and enjoyed by anyone, even those who are not typically part of the gaming world. Going for something so out of the box was a very big risk, but after 20 years of failing to grow their market share, it was a risk Nintendo had to take. The first public mention of this new console came at E3 2004, with the defining word being different. They weren't ready to show anything concrete, but the statements made by Iwata gave us a pretty clear picture of their goals. He explains that Nintendo has come to the conclusion that while better technology is always good, it's not enough. As consoles continue to improve their visuals and inch ever closer towards photorealism, it is going to become increasingly difficult for the average person to really tell the difference. And so simply being more powerful will not be effective. It needs to offer a new play experience, something unlike anything we've ever seen before. In Iwata's words, it needs to create a gaming revolution. The following year at E3 2005, we would get a more official reveal, including the working title of the console being fittingly called Nintendo Revolution. To start, we get one of the most iconic E3 moments of all time, as Iwata triumphantly lifts the console above his head with one hand, flexing its minuscule size in comparison to other home consoles throughout history. The rest of the presentation once again reiterates Nintendo's vision for the upcoming generation. They wanted the machine to be appealing to every member of the household, whether they consider themselves gamers or not. It will be a console where big ideas prevail over big budgets, and where core gamers, casual gamers, and even completely new gamers can feel at home. The key path to achieving that feat would not necessarily be what you will be playing, but how you will be playing. Revolution's innovative features will create entirely new genres, and Iwata feels it's these unique game experiences that will separate Revolution from its competitors, not its technical specs. More tangible announcements followed, such as Revolution's focus on internet and Wi-Fi capabilities, something fans had been begging for in the wake of Xbox Live and the early days of online gaming. This was also the very first time we got a look at Virtual Console, the service that would allow you to download 20 years of Nintendo content. Alongside GameCube backwards compatibility, this meant Revolution would have the ability to potentially play any and every home console game from Nintendo's history. Overall, it was a very good showcase, and while it left fans with a lot of questions, it didn't do so in a bad way. It was more so leaving things open-ended, allowing imaginations to run wild with the possibilities. And while the specifics of this revolution Nintendo kept referring to were not yet totally clear, one thing was. Nintendo seemed extremely confident. Confident in their upcoming device, confident in their new direction, and confident that they were going to carve their own lane to success. I think showing that level of gusto was extremely important during this rocky time of their history. It was a strong proclamation to the world that they were not going anywhere. It helped Nintendo's faithful feel at ease with the future of the company, and let all of their competitors know this battle was far from over. A few months later, at Tokyo Game Show 2005, specifics of their so-called gameplay revolution would be shown for the first time. The next generation controllers were revealed alongside their unorthodox feature of motion control. They had collaborated with a company called Gyration Inc., who worked with motion sensing technology to develop a controller centered around motion-based inputs. Iwata felt using motion controls could streamline the gameplay experience and make it easier for non-gamers to comprehend. If the motions could resemble what real-life movements are like, it would be far more approachable for this group to wrap their heads around than a traditional gamepad. Additionally, an add-on attachment for the controller, which would later become known as the nunchuck, was unveiled. This added an analog stick, giving the potential of more standard gameplay styles as well. It was weird, it was different, and it would definitely take some getting used to, but there were also a lot of exciting new possibilities. In April 2006, the console received a new official name, Nintendo Wii. I always personally wish they stuck with Revolution because that just sounds so cool, but the Wii branding did have a lot of significance. Nintendo chose the name because when said out loud, it's the same as the word Wii, W-E, representing that this console was going to be for everyone. It was also a title that they felt could easily be understood by anyone, regardless of what language they speak. Despite some of of its cleverness, fans went ballistic when this name got revealed. It was mocked relentlessly, with many genuinely concerned that this bizarre title may have just tanked the entire console before it was even released. In a lot of ways, though, it was a fittingly unconventional name for an unconventional machine. And Nintendo smartly got this out of the way early, allowing it to not overshadow their upcoming appearance at E3 2006, the final major event before Wii's release. Wii Sports, Excite Truck, Metroid Prime 3, Fire Emblem, Twilight Princess, and Super Mario Galaxy were all confirmed for Wii at this showcase. With an absolutely killer lineup of games like that, most fans weren't too concerned about the name anymore. Another benefit was that the press were finally able to get their hands on the device. And it was then that this oddity of a console started to click. The tennis demo from Wii Sports was a particular standout, where it became clear how fun and intuitive the Wii could be. Despite this, a lot of skepticism remained from both fans and media as its launch approached. I truly don't think anyone, maybe not even Nintendo themselves, could have predicted exactly what was coming next. The Nintendo Wii released in North America on November 19th, 2006, with other major region launches following a few weeks later. And almost immediately, it became clear Nintendo's Revolution was a hit. It was considered the company's largest console launch ever. Over 600,000 units were sold in its first week, a number Nintendo claimed would have been even higher if they had more stock ready. And this would become a running theme. The Wii was the must-have holiday gift all around the world, with Nintendo totally unable to keep up. More than 4 million Wiis were slated to ship by the end of its launch year, and not even that was enough. There were some component shortages and production issues affecting the process, but more than anything, demand was simply exceeding supply. This would continue all the way through most of 2008, and although I'm sure Nintendo would have preferred they were able to produce more units, I think it ended up accidentally working in their favor. Consumers are creatures of hype. They want what is viewed as popular or cool. So when you see there's a new video game console that sells out the second it hits store shelves every single time, it becomes even more desirable. This phenomenon became free marketing, with the news constantly talking about the Nintendo Wii craze. People were lining up outside stores in the freezing cold, paying wildly inflated prices from resellers on sites like eBay, and some were even willing to literally die for their chance at Nintendo's new machine. By September 2007, it was reported the Wii had surpassed the Xbox 360 in sales and was now the market leader in the home console market. This would be the first time Nintendo could claim that title since the Super Nintendo, which had launched over 20 years ago. By 2009, the production issues were solved and sales continued to soar. 50 million units had been shipped by the console's third anniversary. By the end of 2010, the Wii was approaching 85 million. Sales began to slow later in its life, but the Wii was still able to surpass 100 million total units, a new benchmark no Nintendo home console had ever even come close to reaching before. It was an insane turnaround for the brand, and what's even more impressive is that a lot of its success was for the very reasons Iwata and Nintendo had predicted all along. From the very beginning, Nintendo's vision with the Wii had been to create a device that could cater to anyone. A console that everyone could understand and engage with, even if they knew nothing about video games. Well, if the public's response to the machine was any indication, it would appear they absolutely crushed that goal. The primary game that caught people's attention was Wii Sports. The sports simulation game was the perfect title to show off the Wiimote's motion control capabilities because you could use the remote exactly as you would in real life. For those of us who play a lot of video games and have for most of our lives, using a controller becomes second nature. But have you ever tried handing a controller to someone who has never played a game before? It might as well be asking them to take control of a rocket ship. Things that seem trivial to a gamer, such as camera controls or pressing multiple buttons at once, can put people's minds in a blank. blender. It's frustrating to not understand something in that way and might push them away from pursuing games further. But with Wii Sports, you can swing the remote like a tennis racket or baseball bat, throw a punch, or underhand toss a bowling ball. It was far easier for non-gamers to comprehend because it was simulating accurate movements they could relate to. Thankfully, Nintendo was aware of how important this launch title was going to be. They chose to include Wii Sports as a packing game that came alongside every Wii console. As the story goes, many members of Nintendo's leadership opposed this as they felt giving away software for free would devalue it. But the then president of Nintendo of America, Reggie Fils-Aimé, pushed extremely hard for this and was able to convince them. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say this one decision may have altered the entire console's trajectory. Because by having Wii Sports included, every single person buying a Wii had access to what would become the quintessential motion control video game, one that perfectly encapsulated everything the Wii was trying to achieve. In doing so, anyone inviting friends or family over to check out their new system was exposing them to it as well. And nearly every one of those people introduced to the intuitive and fun Wii Sports came away thinking, I gotta get one of those, regardless of previous gaming experience. Additionally, thanks to its lower specs, the console was significantly cheaper than competitors, making it an even easier purchase to be convinced of. All of this helped the Wii break through in a way that no other Nintendo home console had before. What Nintendo did here was absolutely genius. They looked inward, and in a moment of honest clarity that we rarely see from proud organizations, realized the market had moved away from them. This is the moment when most brands would shift things to be more like everyone else, desperately clinging to whatever seemed easiest to recreate. But rather than groveling to the market that wasn't responding to them, they found a new market altogether. If teens and young adults don't think Nintendo is cool anymore, let's cater to kids and the older generation that aren't even into video games yet. This unique approach is precisely why the Wii was such a success. I do want to note that I don't think everything Nintendo did or said during this era was perfect. Most notably, I was a bit taken aback by Iwata's claims that visual fidelity had already reached its peak, because when looking around the industry, that was just simply not true. PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 3 was a very tangible leap. I'd say even PS3 to PS4 was, and that was a whole console lifecycle later. It was only with the 9th generation of consoles that I started to feel a diminishing return on visuals. So Iwata's prediction was off the mark here by about 15 years, even if it still worked out for them. With that in mind, I feel like nowadays a lot of the talk I hear about the Wii focuses on its negatives. Many Wii games suffered from tacky or annoying motion controls that hindered the experience more than they helped. The console was laughably underpowered, especially by the end of its life, and yes, it was home to more shovelware and garbage third-party support than any other console in history. But I don't think that takes away from the primary point of this video. When Nintendo was at a potential breaking point, its leaders were able to come together and create something truly revolutionary. In an industry where playing it safe is so often the answer, they took a huge risk and came out on top. Everyone involved with the company at that time deserves major credit for pulling off such an incredible feat, even if some elements of it didn't age all that great. The final point I'd like to leave you with is that the success of Wii did not just benefit Nintendo. It was a massive moment for the entire video games industry as we currently know it. At E3 2006, Reggie delivered a powerful statement about the gaming medium that really stuck with me. He posed a question to the audience. He said, and I quote, "Do you know anyone who's never watched TV, never seen a movie, never read a book? Of course not. So let me ask you one more question. Do you know someone, maybe even in your own family, who's never played a video game? I bet you do. How can this be? If we want to consider ourselves a true mass medium, if we want to grow as an industry, this has to change." At the time of this statement, much of the industry was focused on getting more mature, and while that's great, they were missing a key problem. If games continue to age with their audience, then you're leaving behind everyone else. You are forever never relying on this one group of people who just so happened to grow up with games in the 80s. It's simple logic that this group will only ever decrease and struggle to grow. But by Nintendo creating a machine that could draw in children, they were bringing new lifelong gamers into the fold. At the same time, the device was able to get the older generation who might have missed the rise of video games to become fans of it as well. Even if they didn't end up playing them, they could at the very least now understand games and their appeal. By catering to these new groups, they were growing the entire industry and directly helping video games become the everyday media giant we know today, where they are just as ubiquitous as movies or television. There were, of course, many factors that led to the growth of gaming in the 2000s. I don't want to act like it was all thanks to Nintendo, but I do feel confident saying they played a significant role, and the industry we have today would not be as strong as it is without the choices they made with Wii. And what's certainly undeniable is that the brave forward thinking from Iwata, Reggie, and all of Nintendo's leadership of the era absolutely saved a console brand.